Hello, this is Andrew Thake from Minds and Money. Delighted to be joined with us today by Gianni Kovacevic, who's a futurist and investor, as well as founder of CopperBank and Lithium Bank. Delighted to go and have you with us today, Gianni.
Likewise, Andrew, and I think it's a timely update. We've done a few interviews or discussions over the past many years, previously live, and now I'm looking forward to having spontaneously answer some of your questions. And I haven't really been reviewed on that, but I think we'll give it a good shot here.
Well, let's kick off with copper. Last time we spoke, you were bullish on copper. Is that still the case?
Well, it's yes, in a word. And I think it's really about where do we go from here? And I've always talked about this decoupling of new energy from old energy in all categories. You can look at absolute volumes, prices, and the ultimate barometer would be a price chart. So if you were to go back 20 years and look at the price of copper superimposed to the price of oil, it did in fact decouple over the last 4 or 5 years. And if you look back at many of the discussions I gave, I said the driving factor for oil markets is now politics. It's no longer fundamentals, and that is what we've seen here. And so now that you have, we saw a radical rise in the price of oil, but what does that make the growing economies and the established economies of the world want to do? It's going to accelerate their weaning themselves off of these fossil fuels. And I'm not going to get into the bumper sticker issues and when everyone sees Green New Deal and climate change and all that stuff. I'm just talking about the math. Japan as a country, what are they going to do now? If they had a plan 10 years ago, what would their energy situation look like in the distant future? I can assure you it's different today than it was 5 years or 10 years ago, and especially with the political instability which we've seen coming out of the Russo-Ukrainian unfortunate war. This is going to accelerate things, and all roads lead to increased electrification, and you're going to see this continuing decoupling, and copper prices are going to go higher because of fundamentals. Now, also they have the political drivers as well, but for oil markets, I think is going to be different. It's still going to be a good business, perversely enough. It's going to be like, I heard Tom Albanese say it once, and I've plagiarized him many times. Oil is going to be like the tobacco business. No one gets in it, but who's in it? They're a price setter, and I think he was referring to coal actually. And sure enough, that has come true, where people can bad talk it and have all their different wishes, but facts are facts, and you cannot change a country, an established country's energy plans overnight. So terrible decisions.
I think I'm right in reading somewhere that 2021 was still a record year for oil sales. So although we are having this sort of change, change takes sort of like time. In terms of just going back to coal, you talked a bit about the supply and demand fundamentals. Always one of the challenges seems to be on the supply side. Are there enough tier one deposits that are currently being explored and developed, or can more be done there?
We need to differentiate. Are we talking about thermal coal used for making electricity, or are we talking about coking coal used to make steel?
Sorry, copper, tier one copper deposits. Sorry.
Okay, you're talking about copper deposits. Okay, so the answer is complicated. I think it takes a lot longer, but you want a short answer. The future of the copper business will continue to be high in the Andes, countries that have increased political sensitivities, or they don't have a traditional copper mining culture, or we're going to have to go back to those classic traditional copper camps where maybe the grade is a bit lower, or the other factors, but you've got benefits by having perhaps a more stable tax regime or royalty regime. I'm talking about the United States, or you have overwhelming amount of established infrastructure that caters to the development and extraction of copper resources. So those are the three choices that the world has. These are the three choices that all the largest publicly listed copper development and mining companies have. High in the Andes, now I'm talking about Peru and Chile, of course, places that have this political sensitivities. We've seen now the a deal that has been made for the Reko Diq project in Pakistan, which was this. It was before it was a 50-50 joint venture between Antofagasta and Barrick, and now that was stalled. Why? Because of the geology? No, it was because of the a country that does not have this vast copper mining culture, or mining culture for that matter, and it's now going through down a different direction. But this is what the mining world has to face. We believe, and we continue to believe, speaking myself as an investor, the founder of CopperBank, we want to be in those classic copper mining camps. We love Arizona. We chose it, Nevada and Arizona. We did it on purpose. And we looked at projects that had really a lot of capital already sunk in them. And we can tell by the people that are knocking on the door, and the people traveling, and the site visits, and the activity that you have in this copper corridor, which is north of Tucson, where was the largest production area of copper in the world until Chile surpassed it. It's still prolific geological endowment, and there's a lot of interest. And I think if you speak honestly with people at conferences that are off the record, they will tell you almost to a man, if they could find a development project in which jurisdiction, not country, jurisdiction, Arizona would be number one, I believe, for everyone. It would maybe Australia at the margin or some other places, but we like that. We continue to like it, and I think that's where the industry's got to go. So,
yeah, we've been certainly seeing the great, in terms of, I guess, jurisdictions or countries where we're seeing the greatest increase in mining corporates attending mines money over the last year. It's definitely been the US, has definitely been the jurisdiction where we've seen the most increased interest, both from mining companies and also from investors as well. I mentioned at the outset that you're also a founder of Lithium Bank. Presumably lithium is also attracting your eye as well. Can you briefly sort of give us a bit of a detail as to why that's the case?
Yes, we founded CopperBank when these things were out of favor, and as people tell you, you never invest in the story on page 1. That's the efficient market. You invest in the story on page 16. That's headed to page 1, and we were successful. I think we have a high quality projects there. And then I wanted to get involved in lithium, so we waited till the lithium 2.0 market fizzed out. It was in a bear situation, yet we were strong believers that the CAGR growth rate of lithium was going to be something where it's going to grow by 10x. So I don't think anyone disputed that. So where would the future of lithium come from? Well, it came from two different regions. It either came from the salars of South America, or it came from hard rock mining, Ontario, Australia, a few other places. But there was this new technology that's been developed by many people, direct lithium extraction, which is where the reservoir of brine water, typically underwater lakes, and the companies are able to lift this briny water, and then through a process bump up the lithium concentration, and then take it through another chemical process to give battery grade lithium. Are not viable many years ago, where now the large companies are now at the final, not even the final mile, the final 100 meters. So what we did is, during the 2.0 bear market in lithium, I founded Lithium Bank, and we staked over 1 million acres in Alberta. Lithium Bank is going public right now, probably by the end of March 2022. And this development plan that we've put together, have our Hatch Engineering is going to be doing the first preliminary economic assessment on our Fox Creek project. And that economic plan will come out around the July period. So people are going to have a comparables, but let me give you some foreshadowing here. That economic model should be one of the largest development lithium projects in the world, in Alberta, in a project that still is yet scalable even from where we are right now. It's just such a large project. So it should pop on the radar of many different larger companies, and of course for investors when you compare us to other lithium development opportunities. So just to round off, we feel even stronger than 18 months ago or 2 years ago, sort of when we really started to move the chains forward with Lithium Bank. We feel that the future is now, and that direct lithium extraction is going to be the most important future driver for lithium production for the world and for the industry. It's still going to happen with the salars of South America. It's still going to happen with hard rock mining, but this is something that has a much smaller footprint, and it's a much quicker process, where this evaporation in a salar might take 6 months to 12 months. Hard rock mining, it is what it is. It's a conventional exercise for people in the mining business, but it does have a larger footprint. So we feel that there's going to be a lot of eyeballs, a lot of interest, and people need to get further educated on this type of process, and of course for lithium, because lithium is going to grow not by 1,000%, Andrew, but by between now and 2035, it's going to grow by maybe almost 20x. This is really the hiccup in the electrification of the world. Batteries, they need more of these input chemicals, these input materials. We're talking about cobalt, nickel, and these chemistries may change, but the two foundational things are going to be copper and lithium. There's no chemistry, I believe, that's going to be able to substitute them.
And presumably, with regards to direct lithium extraction, because it leaves less of a footprint, are you also hoping to pick up more, I guess, non-traditional mining investors? By that, I'm talking about ESG investors who might have stayed out of the space because they see mining as being environmentally unfriendly, but with something like direct lithium extraction, if it has less impact on the ground, then it may be more attractive to them.
Oh, absolutely. I can tell you by who's knocking on the door, who's already got involved. Look at the performance of some of the other DLE companies, Standard Lithium, E3, and of course this Riocon or whatever it was, the one in Argentina was purchased by Rio Tinto for over $800 million. There's a reason for it. These people are not stupid. Koch Industries invested over $100 million in Standard Lithium. There's a reason for it. The people that are, interested in what we're doing, these are big companies. And just picture in the theater of your mind how this works. You've got a small facility. You're using the existing infrastructure. Now, our projects are in Alberta. That makes it very easy. This is an extractive economy. These are the same wells that either have abandoned oil well infrastructure or existing oil well infrastructure. Same workforce, same people. And then all that's happening is you're pumping up this briny water, goes through this process, it gets repumped in the ground just a little bit clean. And then we just strip out the lithium. And the holy grail there is to get it to be battery grade, and it's in North America, and it can feed our industry. And I think that is something that people really need to take a look at.
You were an early adopter, advocate of electric vehicles. What innovations do you see happening in that space over the next year?
Well, at Paris 2015, and I published my book in February 2016, and I drove across America in an electric vehicle, did it the long way, did it the hard way. I do live in Europe. I drive an electric vehicle here, and I've driven through half of the countries in Europe in an electric vehicle. It's a lot has happened and nothing has happened. And depending on which avenue I want to go, if I want to be optimistic or pessimistic, I could sit there and go down and give you many examples. But nothing has happened because all we get is lip service. They've been talking, governments and cities and industry, how, we're going to electrify, and it's going to be this and that. And countries say by 2025 or 2030, it's going to be forbidden to drive or buy a diesel or gasoline vehicle. This is lip service, Andrew. Very little has happened. A small portion of sales. So if you want to be pessimistic, or people that are very negative on the electric vehicle, they can go down that path. But it is changing. It's happening now, and it's one of these things that just goes like this. Okay. It absolutely is going to be unrecognizable in the next 3 or 4 years. Now, on the positive side, when I drive here, just because I live in Zagreb, Croatia, I have a little car. I live in the central part of the city, and I drive a BMW i3. And people would know that car, and I think most people that are not familiar with this type of electric vehicle would say, it doesn't work, you can't do road trips. Well, I just went from Zagreb to Cortina, Italy. I went on a ski trip. We stopped once for 20 minutes. Then I made it to Cortina, charged the car. On the way back, I stopped once in central Slovenia and then came home. We would stop anyways. You would have your lunch, you would take a bathroom break. There's no inconvenience. This stuff works, and it's only going to become more and more pervasive. And the interface on how you charge a vehicle, where You show up at the supercharger, you use the QR code and you say, let's go. It starts charging immediately. And the next wave of technology is not going to be 30 minutes to give your car a charge. It's going to be around 10 or 15. And all your other charging happens with your lifestyle, typically while you're sleeping at home. So there's been a lot of progress. So I think I am an optimist. I think that there has been a slow start, and perhaps the hiccup now to, for industrialists, are we going to have enough materials to make the billions of batteries? And is the cost of these billions of batteries that still need to be built, is it going to be prohibitively more expensive because you are going to have to pay more for certain inputs? Now, I believe that the price of lithium will come down. I think the prices we've seen are too high. They're not going to stay so high for so long, because there are going to be some development projects that hit the market in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, predominantly direct lithium extraction, easier to build, quicker to build in better jurisdictions. That's coming. So there's going to be a pipeline there, and that's going to be able to sedate, I think, the price of lithium, but not the price of copper. Copper went through how many boom and bust cycles? If you're a 70-year-old mining engineer, you've lived through 5 or 6. And every time you go through a boom and bust cycle, in boom, we spend money, we look for more copper. In bust, companies go bankrupt or they forego their development projects, and the cycle repeats itself. This is not sustainable, because during the China super cycle, Andrew, we spent tens of billions of dollars looking for future reserves and resources for copper. And we didn't find a lot of world-class deposits. We've already done it. So if you're thinking just because the copper price is now at all-time highs and it keeps going higher and we're going to spend a bunch of money, we've already done that exercise. So what has to happen is we're going to have at the margin efficiency across the board in an operation where we go to the existing mines, and maybe they're able to extract an extra maybe 8, 10, 12% of output, but then you have depletion. So where it's going to come in is to enable an engineer to turn a resource into a proven and probable mining reserve. And there's only one input required, Andrew, because we do have dozens of deposits in decent locations. It's the price. You have to have a higher copper price. So it's not the wish, not the thinking or the dreaming or what have you. It almost guarantees that you're going to see a copper price somewhere in the 12 to 15,000 a ton area, and probably higher, because just like you've seen speculators push the price of oil or nickel or other commodities, there will be a mania phase, probably more than one, and copper is going to trade at a level where it doesn't deserve. If it goes to, say, I don't know, $20,000 a ton, which some people have suggested, but just using 12 or 15,000 a 1,000 meters in the Andes with 90% recoveries and all the other ESG issues, I'm telling you, you're going to see a copper price $12,000 to $15,000 a ton. When you see copper at $15,000 a ton, that's the mania phase. That's when it's officially entered page 1. High, it's not an inflation adjusted all-time high, not even close, not even close. With the value of the US dollar, you're going to see copper go much, much higher.
You mentioned also earlier in terms of the adoption of electric vehicles, that the curve might be like a hockey stick type curve. I'm just interested, what might kind of cause that something like hockey stick jump? I mean, at the moment, we've obviously got the Ukraine invasion, and certainly in the UK, we've seen a dramatic increase in people inquiring about buying electric vehicles. Whether that turns into actual sort of like purchases, we need to see over the course of the next few months. But I'm just curious in terms of, what do you think will actually happen in order to suddenly get that like hockey stick sort of like kind of like rise? Will it be one or two things happening, such as the Ukraine war, meaning that people like look at electric vehicles rather than diesel, or will it be like something else?
I think it's going to be a couple things compounding on each other. One, it's going to be customer selection, where when you go to whatever manufacturer, and it's just the better choice, Andrew. You're going to say, this is the future, this is the product. We are getting closer. Eventually, you are going to get these restrictions. And if you live in a jurisdiction, Norway or Netherlands or wherever else, and they start having these tight restrictions in the year 2030, Well, you're already buying in September, you're going to start buying the 2023 model year. What is the resale value of a diesel or gasoline engine vehicle in Norway or Netherlands? Customers do think about that. But of course, you have to have the offering. It has to be there, and it cannot be crazy expensive. It has to be within the margin. But this is where the boogeyman comes out. This is where government, the invisible hand of government, where they're going to start taxing and they're going to take their pound of flesh. One, they're going to do it under the guise of climate change, or if you want to buy the old technology, you must pay more. So even if, take all taxes out of it, you have two vehicles. One is fully electric, one is the incumbent energy, diesel or gasoline. But when you layer in what will be, mark my words, a punitive head tax or surcharge tax on the old technology, this tax will equal the price. So consumers always vote with their wallets, Andrew.
Yeah.
And it's, even though we know maybe that's not fair because it is a tax and they're doing it because of for unreasonable reasons. Governments, to balance their budgets, will even wish you buy the old technology because it gives them more money, more tax money. But when you go to write the check, it's going to be prohibitively more expensive, even though the car to car it may not be. But when you start layering in the added tax and then all the other reasons, because the more and more people that actually try the technology is fascinating, and the resale value and the less maintenance and everything else that people that have experienced electric vehicles, that will all become more mainstream, and people will have their own personal experience. So this is all coming, and we're already 2022, and this is going to have this ongoing positive CAGR growth rate for all these things that enable these electric vehicles.
We talked about, obviously, like both of your company, both the companies that you're involved in. So, I'm sure you'll be advising people to buy shares in Lithium Bank, invest in CopperBank as well. But just turning to electric vehicles, does investing in companies like Tesla still represent good value?
You need to be an analyst on that, and I think when you're looking at any company, it's worth its its future cash flow, and people are giving certain companies 40, 50, 60 years future earnings. So how you do that, I don't know. What's the world going to look like in 7 years? Perhaps Tesla got ahead of itself. I'm not going to speculate on that. I think the opportunity is something like the commodity index. People have all seen this. People watching this show will know the graph I'm talking about. When you compare the general stock market to commodities, in the ratio, and we saw it was the cheapest it's ever been until just now. It's upticked a little bit.
Yeah.
So is it plausible? Could we see a continued up momentum in commodities, and could we see an abatement in the general stock market? Boring. Doesn't mean it's going to collapse or crash, but just it's not going to be as up every year like it's been since about 2010. Yeah. So I think the answer is yes. I think that's going to become more and more known by generalist investors. And I can tell you some of the people that I've spoken to, people that I've known maybe for many years, they're taking a lot of time. Generalists have nothing to do with commodities, or people that have not perhaps attended your shows before. They want to get involved in the enablers of electrification, which means, of course, these input products, copper, lithium, and all the rest.
Do you think we're seeing more downstream and upstream integration? And I think by that, I mean, Tesla's another electric vehicle manufacturers starting to go and buy more like mine, so they have a security of supply.
That would make sense, and of course, people have seen the headlines of some of these activities taking place, and I would submit to people that is something that you're going to see, front page of the Financial Times type headlines, where you have what really is quite an obvious partnership, what should be someone that's requiring an input product. Henry Ford, everyone should know this, back in 100 years ago, he bought the rubber plantation. He used to buy the actual input materials. He was such a pervasive user of these things. So to me, it makes a lot of sense. And that is only going to, I think, push the prices higher. And we still, can't forget, it's not easy. This is not an easy industry. And I continue to stress, where you have, a tax regime that is known, we have a royalty regime that's known, and when you have the rule of law, and you have an established culture for this type of industry, you want to be in those jurisdictions, because moving 1,000 people or 2,000 people in and out of an area, you know, this is not easy. Those people want to be at home with their families. So if you could be in an area where people can go and watch their kids' soccer practice every weekend, these are jurisdictions of you know, blue ribbon or choice number one. And so your investors should be looking at that. This is a factor. It's not just a pipe dream where you look at, oh, well, they drilled this intercept or they have this economic model. Where's the project located? Don't tell me what the regime looks like or the tax or royalty regime looks like today. What's it going to look like 5 years from now? Because that's the company that's going to buy the little developer. You know, they look at that. They look at the actual extraction of the product for 20 or 30 years. And you know, all roads lead to, I think, those established mining camps. But we'll see. Time will tell.
Well, I think we're out of time. But as always, Gianni, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. That was Gianni Kovacevic, Futurist and Investor, and founder of CopperBank and Lithium Bank. And this was Andrew Tate from Minds and Money. Thank you very much, Gianni.